Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
It was late October in northern Maine, and the first snow had just dusted the remote roads leading into the forested hills where Rachel had recently inherited her uncle's cabin. He died suddenly, and since she was the only living relative, the property was now hers. She hadn't been close to him, barely remembered him really, but the idea of a weekend alone to decompress was too tempting. No cell service, no people, just quiet. She arrived just before dusk, the cold already creeping in. The cabin was modest, built in the 70s, with creaky floors and that old wood smell of generations past. As she lit a fire in the hearth, she noticed the odd placement of the furniture, like it had all been pushed toward the center of the living room. The sofa was angled strangely, and the armchair faced the window, though the view was only of trees and the edge of the forest. She chalked it up to her uncle's eccentricity. He'd been a recluse, according to the lawyer. Barely left the woods. Neighbors said they hadn't seen him in years. That night, the wind howled outside, knocking against the windows like a warning. Around 2 a.m., she awoke to what she thought was scratching, light, almost hesitant, coming from the front door. Her heart slammed in her chest. She held her breath, listened harder. There it was again. Scratch, scratch, pause. Scratch, scratch, scratch. She crept to the door and peeked through the peephole. Nothing. Just the front porch and the endless dark beyond. She told herself it was probably a raccoon or maybe a branch brushing the door. She went back to bed, but the sound came again the next night, and this time it was followed by footsteps on the porch, slow, deliberate, heavy. She stared at the ceiling, paralyzed, as the steps circled the cabin, once, twice, then stopped beneath her bedroom window. There was a long silence, then 3 sharp knocks, not on the window, but on the wall itself, as though someone knew exactly where she was. Morning couldn't come fast enough. She walked the perimeter of the cabin, expecting to find footprints, but the snow was undisturbed, completely smooth. No tracks, no animals, nothing. She started to feel watched. Every time she looked out the window, she expected to see something, someone, just standing still among the trees. But there was never anything there. Until the third night. It started with a faint noise, like humming, a low, tuneless hum that floated in through the chimney. She turned off all the lights, unsure why, and just listened. The humming stopped, replaced by whispers, dozens of voices speaking just below the edge of understanding. Then she heard it, her name, whispered, drawn out, right outside the cabin. She backed away from the window, heart pounding. That's when the lights flickered and died, leaving her in complete blackness. She fumbled for her phone, but it wouldn't turn on. Not even a glow. Nothing electronic worked. Then the banging started. Not just on the front door, on all sides, like the cabin was being hit from every direction at once. She screamed, but no one could hear her. Miles from anyone, miles from anything. Suddenly it all stopped. Dead silence. She stood there, frozen, clutching a fireplace poker. And then the doorknob turned. Not fast, not aggressive, just slow. Testing, trying. She bolted for the back room, locked herself inside, and didn't sleep. When daylight came, she grabbed her keys and fled. She didn't even pack. Weeks later, the police called. They'd found something during a welfare check after the power company reported strange outages in the area. Her uncle's cabin had been broken into, or rather, broken out of. Every door had claw marks from the inside. The furniture had been pushed to block the windows. And in the back room, where she'd hidden, they found dozens of Polaroids scattered on the floor. All of them were of her, taken through the windows, some from the edge of the woods, some from inside the cabin. And the last one, dated the night she fled, showed her sleeping in the back room. In the corner of the frame, barely visible in the darkness, was the faint outline of a face, smiling.
Story number 2.
It was a chilly autumn night when Emma found herself alone in her small apartment. The kind of night that made the shadows stretch long and the silence feel thick enough to suffocate. Her roommates had all gone out, leaving her with only the flickering street lamp outside her window and the faint hum of distant cars. She was supposed to enjoy the quiet, but tonight it felt oppressive, like the darkness was waiting for something. Around midnight, she decided to lock every door and window twice, an old habit from when she was a kid and afraid of the dark. The click of the locks echoed a little too loudly in the stillness. She shrugged off the unease and tried to distract herself by scrolling through her phone, but the battery was dangerously low. When it finally died, the screen went black, plunging her into silence and shadow. Then came the first sound, a soft tapping at the front door. Emma froze. She wasn't expecting anyone. The building was old, the kind where noises crept and settled into the walls, but this was distinct. Tap, tap, not loud, but deliberate. She told herself it was probably the wind or a branch brushing the glass. She pulled the curtains closed tightly and backed away. The tapping stopped. Relief washed over her, but only for a moment. A quiet whisper followed. It wasn't a voice she recognized. It didn't sound like words, just breathy murmurs that drifted like smoke through the crack under her door. Emma's heartbeat hammered in her ears as she moved closer, listening. The whisper stopped abruptly. Then, from the hallway outside her door, she heard the slow scrape of something being dragged, something heavy. Her mind screamed to call for help, but her phone was dead, and the old landline in the kitchen had a crackling dial tone. No connection. Panic rose as the dragging noise circled her door. Then, the knocking began again, but this time, irregular, sharp, frantic. The kind of knocking that didn't ask to be let in but demanded it. She shoved a chair under the doorknob and slid the bolt into place. Her breaths came in ragged bursts, every muscle tense, waiting for the inevitable. Suddenly, the electricity flickered and died. The apartment was plunged into pitch black, broken only by the faint orange glow of the street lamp outside. The knocking stopped. The silence was heavier than before. Then a slow, deliberate breathing began, right outside the door. Not the shallow breath of someone afraid, but deep and slow, like a predator savoring its prey. Emma's legs refused to move. She wanted to scream, to run, but the darkness held her still. Then came the faintest sound of fingernails, long scraping nails, dragging softly along the wood paneling of the door. A cold sweat broke across her skin. She realized the thing outside wasn't trying to enter. It was trying to get her attention. A voice, barely audible, whispered through the crack beneath the door, "You're not alone." The lights snapped back on, and in that brief flash of illumination, Emma caught a glimpse of something. Just a shadow, really, standing in the hallway, staring through the peephole with eyes that glowed like embers. The moment the light returned, the shadow was gone. The hallway was empty. Emma never unlocked that door again until her roommates came back. When they did, she moved out the next day. No one ever found out who or what was tapping, whispering, and watching that night. But Emma swears she still hears the slow breathing just beyond her bedroom door whenever she's alone after dark.
Story number 3.
It was one of those nights where the silence in the house felt heavier than usual. Jenna had always enjoyed the quiet, but tonight, alone in her small apartment, the stillness gnawed at her nerves. The power had gone out hours ago due to a fierce storm outside, and with only the pale moonlight leaking through the cracked blinds, every shadow seemed to twitch and breathe on its own. She sat curled up on the couch with a flashlight, scrolling through her phone, trying to distract herself. But the battery was dangerously low, and the sporadic flicker of the storm's lightning only made the room more unsettling. The walls suddenly felt closer, as if the darkness was pushing inward, crowding her. Her mind raced back to stories she'd heard about people who were alone at night, about footsteps echoing in empty houses, whispers in the dark, and eyes watching from corners where nothing should be. She tried to laugh it off. It was just her imagination. Then she heard it, a faint, dragging noise coming from the kitchen. She froze, breath hitching. The storm outside rumbled louder, but this noise was different. It was slow, deliberate, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. She told herself it must be the wind, or maybe the old pipes settling, but the noise grew closer. The dragging stopped right outside the door to the living room. Her flashlight trembled in her hand as she shone it toward the hallway, but the beam only cut through the thick shadows. Suddenly, a whisper, soft, almost inaudible. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was cold, like a warning. Jenna's heart pounded so loud she feared it would give away her position. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. It was as if something was holding her there, waiting. The whisper turned into a voice, low and rasping, just inches from her ear. "You shouldn't be here." The words sent ice through her veins. She whipped around, but no one was there. Her phone died. The flashlight flickered and went out. She was plunged into total darkness, her breath shallow and fast. The dragging noise started again, closer, circling her now. She could feel it, the presence, cold and watching, inching closer in the dark. Jenna scrambled toward the door, fumbling for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Behind her, the whisper came again, louder this time, wrapping around her like a chill wind. "You're not alone." The storm raged outside, but inside the silence swallowed her whole. And in the blackness, Jenna knew the night was far from over.